granite beams have been elevated to a height of more than 350 feet above the ground and carefully and precisely placed in position.
For years, we've been taught that the ancient Egyptians carved granite using simple copper tools. At first, it seemed believable. However, when scientists took a closer look, they found the cuts on these stones were smooth, deep, and almost too perfect. This kind of precision wasn't possible with ancient tools. For decades, these marks have left experts puzzled, searching for answers. But what if these cuts weren't made the way we think? And what if the real method has long been forgotten? Now, after years of digging and research, the recent evidence may finally bring us closer to understanding this millennia-old mystery. But first, let's understand how it all began in the first place. The strange granite cuts. Researchers noticed something unusual when they examined the unfinished granite sarcophagus in the Cairo Museum. The inside surface did not look like it was shaped by simple hand tools. It was smooth, evenly curved, and marked with clean lines that didn't match copper chisels or wooden hammers. The box was made from red Aswan granite, a stone rated around 6 on the Mohs hardness scale. Copper sits at about 3, which means it cannot cut deeply into granite. Yet the inner walls showed deep and uniform cuts. The angles were sharp, and the grooves followed straight, steady paths. According to the traditional explanation, this sarcophagus was carved over 4,000 years ago using copper tools and sand. But the marks did not support that idea. They looked more like the result of a rotating tool that maintained constant pressure. Engineers later studied these lines under proper lighting and saw spiral patterns running along the walls. These spirals matched the movement of a high-speed drill, not a hand-turned copper tube. The grooves were steady and evenly spaced, which normally requires controlled rotation and stable torque. If only copper and sand were used, the cuts should have been slow, shallow, and inconsistent. Instead, the unfinished box showed fast progress and high precision. This raised an even bigger question for researchers. How were these deep and accurate cuts made? To dig deeper, they turned their attention to granite drill holes found across Egypt. And what they discovered next was even more surprising. Clues in the drill holes. After the unusual marks inside the sarcophagus raised questions, researchers studied other granite objects across Egypt. Many of them had deep circular holes drilled into the stone. These holes became important because they showed direct signs of the original cutting process. To avoid harm to the artifacts, a team from the University of Pennsylvania Museum made silicone molds of the holes and the remaining stone cores. These molds captured every small detail. Under a microscope, the results were clear. The drill holes showed even spiral grooves. These grooves were not random or uneven. Their spacing changed slightly along the hole, which means the speed or pressure of the drill changed during use. Human hands cannot maintain this level of steady control. A hand tool would shake, slow down, or leave irregular marks. But these grooves did not show that behavior. The shape of the holes gave another clue. They were made with hollow tubes, not solid drills. This method is known today as tubular drilling. Modern engineering uses this technique for clean, efficient cuts in hard stone. According to traditional history, tubular drilling was invented in the 1800s, yet the ancient holes matched this method. Researchers then measured the cutting rate. The drill seemed to move about 1/10 of an inch with every full rotation. This is a fast cutting speed, even for modern diamond tools. Copper should not be able to cut granite this quickly. It would bend or wear down. But the ancient marks did not match copper use. Experiments using copper tubes and quartz sand were repeated, but they produced rough, shallow cuts. None of them matched the smooth spiral marks found in the ancient cores. The difference between the ancient evidence and modern tests became difficult to explain. The grooves also showed a steady rhythm, suggesting constant force and stable rotation. This does not match simple hand drills. The same pattern appeared at several different sites, showing that this was a standard technique, not a one-time experiment. All of these findings led to one key question: what kind of tool could produce marks like these? The missing tools. When researchers compared the drill marks on ancient granite to the tools found in excavations, a clear mismatch appeared. Archaeologists uncovered copper tubes, bow drills, wooden shafts, and dolerite pounders. These tools worked well on softer stones like limestone, but granite required far more strength. To test this gap, engineers tried using the same tools under controlled conditions. They used copper tubes with quartz sand. They used bow drills with water and abrasive mixtures. They used stone pounders on granite blocks. None of these methods produced results close to the clean spiral marks seen on ancient granite cores. Copper bent out of shape. The tubes wore down quickly. The cuts were shallow and uneven. The sand lost its sharp edges. Even after long hours, the holes were rough and inconsistent. The ancient marks showed steady rotation and deep progress, something these tools could not achieve. Researchers also tested ideas like adding harder minerals to copper drill edges or creating composite tools with pressed grains. But the performance still did not match the ancient evidence. And importantly, no drill bits like these have ever been found in any museum or excavation. Another issue is size. Most copper drills discovered are small and suited for wood or soft stone. They are not the type of tools needed for deep cuts in hard granite. If larger or stronger tools existed, none are preserved. Some engineers suggested a weighted drilling system for steady pressure, but again, no physical remains of such a setup have been found. This leaves a key problem. The tools we have do not match the marks we see. The stone suggests an entirely different method was employed. But what tools were actually used to carve these stones? To solve this mystery, researchers began looking at the ancient quarries, and that's when everything started to make sense. The Aswan Quarry. To understand how the granite was shaped, researchers went back to the source. The quarries at Aswan contain the largest amount of ancient granite work in Egypt. Many temples, statues, and sarcophagi began here as raw stone. This area also holds one of the most useful clues, the unfinished obelisk. The unfinished obelisk is a huge block of granite that cracked during work and was left where it was. Because it was abandoned, the marks around it remain preserved. The trench surrounding the obelisk shows long grooves and smooth channels carved into the bedrock. These marks are not scattered. They follow clear paths. The cuts bend neatly along the walls and floor of the trench. Archaeologists commonly explain these marks by saying workers used dolerite, pounding stones. These round stones are harder than granite and can break the surface when used repeatedly. Many dolerite stones have been found at the site. However, when engineers studied the marks closely, several issues became clear. The trench is narrow. There is not enough space for workers to swing the pounding stones with full force. The grooves are also smooth, not uneven. Pounding usually leaves dents, chips, and rough patches. The quarry marks do not show these signs. Some grooves extend under the obelisk. A handheld pounding stone cannot easily reach those areas. Engineers who analyze tool marks notice that the grooves look more like controlled abrasion than impact. The curved channels match what happens when a rotating or vibrating tool moves across stone. The cuts hold a steady depth. They do not show the irregular pressure that occurs when striking by hand. The marks also stay consistent over large surfaces. Handwork usually creates variations, but these lines keep the same pattern. This suggests that the movement was guided, not freehand. The directions of the grooves shift smoothly, as if the tool followed an intentional route. Another concern is tool wear. If workers relied only on pounding stones, they would have needed a very large number of them to shape such a big piece of granite. Yet only a limited number of stones have been found. This does not match the amount of work seen in the quarry. The quarry marks also connected earlier pieces of evidence. They showed the same smooth, guided cutting found on sarcophagi interiors and ancient drill cores. This repeated pattern across different sites made researchers question whether the stoneworking method was part of a larger and consistent system. These observations pushed investigators to consider another possibility. If the quarry marks, drill holes, and carved surfaces all display the same type of precision, then the knowledge used to create them likely came from a shared technique. And this is where the research took an unexpected turn, because what they uncovered next forced experts to look beyond the tools themselves and search for the origin of the method behind them. The forgotten knowledge. As researchers compared findings from museums, quarries, and drill cores, a clear pattern began to appear. The precision found in Egypt's granite work did not emerge in one location or time period. It appeared across several sites and continued for long spans of history. This led to an important idea. The methods used by ancient craftsmen might not have originated with them. Graham Hancock proposes that the Egyptians may have inherited certain stoneworking techniques instead of creating them from the beginning. His view does not claim that earlier people used modern machinery. It simply suggests that they understood how to shape hard stone with more control than expected for ancient cultures. One reason for this idea is the similarity of tool marks found outside Egypt. At sites in South America and India, some stone surfaces show circular cuts, precise joints, and smooth finishes that are difficult to explain using only simple copper tools. These similarities appear even though the cultures were separated by long distances. Some researchers believe this could indicate shared methods or knowledge passed down over many generations. It is possible that Egyptian workers continued these methods without fully understanding the original principles behind them. Over time, practical skills can shift into tradition. Techniques may be repeated because they were taught, not because their purpose is fully known. When this happens, fine details can be lost even when the overall method survives. This idea does not replace established archaeology. Instead, it offers a possible explanation for why the tools found do not match the marks seen on the stone. If the methods were inherited, the earliest tools may have been different. Some materials may not have survived. Wood, plant fibers, and old binding substances decay quickly, leaving little physical evidence. Another question involves the changes in precision over time. Many granite pieces from older periods show higher accuracy than those made later. If the original methods came from an earlier source, the quality may have decreased as the knowledge became harder to maintain. These points do not prove the existence of a lost civilization. They highlight areas where our understanding may be incomplete. The physical evidence shows that the shaping of granite involved a level of control that is not fully explained by copper tools and sand. The repeated patterns across distant regions suggest a wider tradition. This led researchers to focus on one of the most unusual locations in Egypt, and what they found there raised even more questions. The perfect stone boxes. Some of the clearest physical evidence comes from the Serapeum in Saqqara. This underground site contains large granite boxes carved from single stone blocks. Each box weighs about 70 tons and sits inside long tunnels cut through limestone. When engineers examined these boxes, their measurements showed a level of precision that is difficult to explain with basic hand tools. The inner surfaces are smooth and consistent. The walls are almost perfectly flat. The corners are sharp and form clean right angles. In some areas, the accuracy reaches within 1/1000th of an inch. This type of precision is normal in modern machine work, but uncommon in ancient stone carving. Light can travel along the inner edges without interruption, showing how straight the lines are. Another detail adds to the questions. Boxes with similar quality appear at other Egyptian sites from different time periods. Some examples appear earlier than the Serapeum itself, yet they show the same workmanship. According to the usual timeline, stoneworking in Egypt should have decreased in accuracy over the centuries. However, the oldest pieces show some of the highest quality work. The dating of the Serapeum boxes also remains unclear. Researchers often assign dates based on pottery found nearby, not on the granite itself. Because granite cannot be carbon dated and the boxes lack inscriptions, it is difficult to confirm when they were made. The boxes may be older than the tunnels around them. Microscopic studies reveal spiral marks on the surfaces, similar to those seen on granite drill cores. These patterns show steady movement and controlled pressure. Copper chisels do not create spiral lines, and pounding stones do not produce smooth, reflective surfaces. The marks suggest a cutting process that could remove granite in a steady and even manner. Another detail is the lack of tool remains. Work of this scale should leave behind many damaged tools, yet few have been found. The hardness and size of the boxes imply the use of strong cutting devices, but no clear examples of such tools have been recovered from the area. Researchers also note how the boxes were placed. Moving 70-ton granite pieces through narrow tunnels would require careful planning. The tunnel walls show clean cuts rather than rough breaking, which suggests guided shaping. Overall, the evidence points to a method of stoneworking that produced consistent and advanced results. The Serapeum boxes show that this level of precision in Egypt did not come from one site or one period. It appeared across different locations and timelines, forming a repeated pattern. These details encouraged researchers to use newer forms of analysis to see whether modern technology could reveal more information hidden in the surface marks. The final proof. As more data were collected, researchers began using improved methods to study the granite marks. High-resolution 3D scans were applied to drill cores, quarry walls, and stone boxes. These scans revealed geometric patterns that could not be seen by eye. The results added a new layer of information to the ongoing investigation. The scans showed clear spiral lines inside ancient drill cores. These spirals were smooth and evenly spaced. They matched patterns created by tools with steady rotation. When the data was compared with modern machining models, the rhythm of the spirals aligned closely with controlled cutting systems. Simple hand tools do not create this kind of pattern. One scan showed that the drill advanced about 1/10 of an inch with each full rotation. This cutting rate is much higher than what a copper tube can achieve. Even modern diamond tools struggle to cut granite that quickly without overheating or losing shape. Yet the ancient cores showed the same depth along their entire length. Researchers also used the same scanning method to study the trenches around the unfinished obelisk at Aswan. The surfaces showed horizontal lines that looked like feeding marks. These are small pauses made when a cutting tool withdraws to clear dust before continuing. Such marks appear on machine-cut surfaces today. They do not match the marks left by pounding stones. Another clue came from an object found in the tomb of Prince Sabu. It is made of a fragile stone called schist. The object has curved fins and a centered hub. The shape is precise and balanced. Cutting such a design from weak stone without breaking it would be very difficult using copper chisels. The surface shows controlled shaping rather than random chipping. Its purpose remains unknown, but the workmanship suggests stable and consistent tools. Researchers also examined drill holes with extremely thin walls. Some granite cores had walls thinner than what many modern drills can maintain. Keeping this level of accuracy by hand would be difficult. It requires a stable system that prevents wobbling or sudden shifts. The holes stayed uniform from top to bottom, showing that the tool angle did not change. Even when modern teams tried to reproduce the cuts using copper, sand, and copies of ancient tools, the results were limited. The grooves were uneven. The pressure could not stay constant. The cutting speed was slow. None of the attempts matched the clean, consistent patterns seen in the original artifacts. This repeated issue made the ancient marks harder to explain using simple methods. The 3D scans, microscopic studies, and experimental trials all pointed in the same direction. The stone preserved evidence of a method that is not yet fully understood. The precision, speed, and consistency suggest that the ancient craftsmen used a system that offered steady force and controlled rotation. Taken together, these findings formed a stronger case than before. The signs in the granite did not match the copper tools. They pointed toward a technique that has not been identified in the archaeological record. All of this evidence raised one final point. The stone shows a level of precision that known tools cannot explain. The evidence in Egypt's granite is clear. The cuts are too smooth, the holes too precise, and the surfaces too perfect for simple copper tools. Something in the past had a method we no longer understand. The stone keeps that memory even if the tools are gone. So the real question is simple. How was this work actually done? Drop your thoughts about this in the comments below. If you liked this video, ensure you give it a thumbs up. Also, consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already, because we will be uploading more crazy stories like this one in the coming weeks. Until then, see ya!